future is, but it'll never be our past. You can distance in your world, but never ever change the past. Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Fight Club Hubs here. Welcome to another live episode of GVN Live. It is post-Summer Jam Syndrome and SummerSlam Syndrome, since we have some wrestling fans in the panel today. I am joined with Mark B, Emily, and today's special guest, Chris Bahn. How's everybody doing today? We'll start with Emily.
I am tired. I am very, very tired. As most people in the NTC know, Summer Jam 10 was just last weekend. So, of course, I was running around working the event and I got no sleep like most people get. So I'm still, I had to go back to work. So I'm still coming off of that and trying to recover. And the weekend before that was the Red Bull event. So haven't had, exactly one full week off yet in a little bit of a while. But other than that, I'm good.
Oh, okay. So, well, I did see you over the weekend, of course. You look, you're running all over the place. I was able to sit you down for like 2 minutes.
Until somebody came up to me, right? And then I was like, I'm sorry, I have to go.
Pretty much.
That's typical trends for me at
But now the long road of recovery begins, right?
Yeah.
Until NEC.
Until NEC. I have like a day or two before I have to jump back into all the work again, but...
Okay, now that leads us... Oh, real quick, you probably noticed that Keith isn't here. He is out enjoying a very nice vacation on a cruise ship somewhere, so...
Oh, I am jealous.
I think he said cruise ship. I could be wrong. But anyway, we will now turn over and say, how you doing, Mark?
Tired.
That seems to be the central theme of this past weekend. Everyone's a little tired.
I
didn't even do any fighting game community stuff. I've just been doing classwork and work and writing reviews and stuff.
Work.
Oh yeah. What did you just recently work on?
King of Fighters 14.
Oh, cool.
Yay!
You want to talk about that in a little bit?
Sure.
I am
All
so
right.
I'm so
So
excited
let's turn over before we talk about what we've been playing lately. How you doing, Chris?
I am not tired, so therefore.
Oh,
I'm doing
okay.
And I have to say it's kind of weird not actually seeing you at a Big E event. It's been a while.
It has been a while. It definitely has been a while, and the feeling is mutual. I know that I've started much of my media stuff in terms of photography there. So yeah, it's bittersweet.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to see you at NEC.
Hopefully, we'll see what the future holds.
We shall see.
All right, so turning over to since everyone needs to relax, we'll start with you, Chris. What have you been playing lately?
Well, to be honest, it shouldn't come as much a surprise to anybody that's watching this that I tend to spend much of my time playing Street Fighter. Mm-hmm. After I'm done with work, the first thing I'm usually thinking of is hitting up the lab, hopping online, playing a game, and just seeing how I do. So I've been spending a lot of time playing that game. But every now and then, since I do have a PlayStation 4, obviously, I try to play a bit of Ratchet and Clank, like the new one, because they basically, remixed the whole game, and I thought that was an awesome game for them to bring back. I was always fond of that. And then, of course, there's some of my mobile games. I always try to make time of that. But for the most part, it's just Street Fighter. I just spend a lot of time doing that. So that way, whenever I do show up in an event, people always have the impression that I don't play because they see so much of my time is being spent taking photos and writing articles. So it's always a surprise to be like, oh, you play this game? Like, yeah, I do. Good times.
How about Alpha 2? Have you been playing that lately?
No, surprisingly, a lot of people are disappointed when they hear that. I actually have not turned on Fightcade in, I would say, about 3 to 4 months.
Tisk, for shame on you, sir.
I know if Kyle was watching this or Jemine was watching this, they'd be a little salty to hear that I feel like that I've somehow abandoned them. But I'm pretty sure that I could still take Kyle in particular. He's always talking smack.
Well, Kyle always talks smack, but he can back it up at least.
That and that is very true. But at some point, being that you mentioned, I probably should power back up, dust off the cobwebs and see how I do in that game because that was one of my first loves.
So, Emily, have you tried playing anything to relax these past 2 weeks? It's been pretty busy for you, pretty chaotic.
I have actually. So because Street Fighter 5 makes me angry when I when I play it, it really just I don't know. It's every time I sit down and turn out like I'm excited. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it another shot, and then like 5 minutes in, I'm like, I hate this, and I just immediately. I've actually been playing the King of Fighters demo. So whenever like I get a moment and I'm just like, God, I really need to just play like a game right now. Like I've been playing King of Fighters. That game just gets me really hyped up. It gets me really excited. The only thing that's annoying right now is obviously it's the demo, so I have limited characters. The only thing that's nice is that Mai is one of my main characters. I play her in every single King of Fighters game. So the one thing that really helped me luck out was that they put her in the demo. So at least I got to do some training with her and work on her a little bit. I got to play King of Dinosaurs for a little bit. I kind of enjoy him, but I'm just not 100% sure if I'm going to use him or not. At least not yet. Playing that game has kind of helped me level out a little bit. I also did get, oh my God, I can't even think of the game right now.
Real quick, are you going to play
No Man's
Sky?
Yeah.
No Man's
Real quick,
Sky.
are you going to play Mai in DOA when she comes out?
I have DOA 5 last round. I do have it, and you know what? I don't know. I don't know.
Look at Chris. He's sitting there like,
Yes.
I don't know.
come on.
I don't know. Maybe. I might be putting a lot of my focus into King of Fighters instead. So, we'll see. But I did get No Man's Sky as well. I spent some time playing that for a little bit, and then things got really, really chaotic, leading right into Summer Jam. So there was maybe 10 minutes of King of Fighters in that. And then there was about 15 minutes of King of Fighters at Summer Jam and about 5 minutes of an arcade machine where I actually was playing an old version of King of Fighters, and then there was me working. So yes, to answer your question, there was some downtime. I made some downtime for myself, and majority of it was King of Fighters, and one night was No Man's Sky.
I approve. All right. And Mark, let's turn over to you before we move on to the FGC corner.
Well, as I said, I've been playing King of Fighters 14 for review. The review went live today at 10 a.m.
Oh, you should have sent me it. I would have tweeted it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, it's a consensus. We all agree.
I did tweet it.
No, but you didn't you gotta either say something or tag the person in it, especially me. Otherwise,
it's such a good segue, especially since I actually just did an article earlier today that basically talked about what the overall major media outlets think about King of Fighters. So
I retweeted that, didn't I?
Well, there we go. I'll
Did you?
post it in the
Yeah.
I'll post it in the chat for your viewing
yeah, I'll
pleasure.
post on the chat. Y'all can check that out. And it was really good to hear that. Not to cut off Mark, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's I actually went through your article because Emily retweeted it, and I went through a lot of the reviews, and I mostly agree with the sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the game. I do. I've been a fan since '95.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing the games consistently. I imported '97 at one point. I love the franchise. Even the older 3D ones that not necessarily everybody is a fan of. I love the franchise.
Correct.
I feel like a lot of people are really focusing on the visual quality of the game,
Yes.
and
Okay.
I really don't feel like that's relevant.
No, okay, so here's the thing I have noticed. So when I've watched it on stream, I can almost sort of understand why people feel that way, because visually it's a game that it's beautiful in person. But when watching it on stream, it's different. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's more appealing watching in person than it is watching on a stream for whatever reason. And it's not like it's a bad visual change, but for whatever reason on stream it doesn't look as great as it does when you're sitting in front of a TV actually playing it. And I don't know if anybody else agrees with me on that, but I have noted, like, but you're right. I don't think that it's anything that's like really like significant for people to harp on it. I know in the very beginning I was with everybody else when the very first, teaser trailer came out, and I was like, really? Like, that looks worse than the PS2 the last time they did, 3D, but you know what? Every single time they released a new one, the visuals were better. Every single time they released a new video over and over again, it got significantly better. And so, I give them a lot of props for that. I think that they knew there might be some backlash in the beginning, but I think it was more of they just wanted to get it out there that it was being made.
The thing is that, especially by today's standards, you have to understand that player expectations are considerably high, and visuals it typically tends to be on a lot of players' list of, if the game is visually here, then therefore I consider it worth my time. Substance obviously is important, but unfortunately, eye candy plays a crucial role for a lot of players. And that is why it got the backlash that it did, especially because by PlayStation 4 and Xbox One standards, that was unacceptable. They look at that, and as far as they're concerned, that's taking a step backwards. But
and yet Street Fighter 5 doesn't look that much better than Street Fighter 4 and gets no flack.
Well, the thing is on the contrary, because if you go back and you look at Street Fighter 4, you can see there's an obvious evolution there.
Yes.
It's almost like a mixture, I think, between 2D and 3D, because Street Fighter 5 didn't go completely 3D, but their models kind of went closer towards that kind of structure.
Right, and it's been argued that the real reason why they ended up doing it, for one, is because ever since the advent of 3D, it was inevitable that all the games would eventually adopt that. It's very expensive to have these artists sit there and draw these characters frame by frame by frame. That is one of the real reasons why these guys decided to move away from that. It's far easier for them to take a drawing and then to throw that and sculpt it in 3D and to say, okay, here you go. And that's ultimately why Street Fighter 5, or rather Street Fighter 4, started off of that. But I feel that this generation has tend to like move away what really should make a great fighting game. And you need to have, especially these days where you're working to be accessible, you're working to make sure that your game has enough amount of depth so that the hardcore audience actually is going to appreciate it. But you obviously want to cater to the casual audience. But unfortunately, both of those groups, both to some degree, tend to get hung up on the visuals. And having looked at a little bit of videos, you're absolutely correct. It does not actually look that appealing when it's on stream. But when you see the game, I know if I had it actually in front of me right now, I would say, oh my God, this game is actually gorgeous.
It's
really, really
beautiful.
Good. Yeah, for a by 3D standards, and for what SNK did of it, yes, it's totally to be commended. But I feel that right now, because when you see what can be done with PC architecture in particular, and then you look at some of these games, you go, what the hell? Why does this game not have these amazing details and stuff where, characters have long locks of hair and every polygon is flowing? It's just like, that shit's expensive.
Well, and I don't think
true.
that people, I don't think that people necessarily realize that. And I mean, maybe this is more of a better segment with the whole like No Man's Sky thing, and
we'll talk greater expectations, so we can hold off on that for now.
Yeah.
If you want. But let's I know you want to talk so badly, Emily. I know.
I know.
Just keep it in. But
Hey,
you can unleash it. I know. But let's get back to Mark, because I think he got lost in the shuffle here talking about King of Fighters.
Sorry, Mark.
Yes.
Oh, what was that? I'm sorry, I nodded off.
Oh my God.
No, but seriously, yeah. So as has been said, I don't feel like a fighting game lives and dies by its visuals.
No,
You know,
100%.
King of Fighters in any generation or any generation of it has been played at tournaments successfully. As you mentioned, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Street Fighter Alpha 3 come up. Those are over a decade old at this point. Its visual quality is not indicative of community acceptance.
Right.
I do feel, on the other hand, that for the most part, the discussions of mechanics are spot on. The game takes what 13 did and refines it, taking some elements that worked really well and combining them with elements from previous games. So now we have the max meter back, where you press 2 buttons to kick that on, burning a bar of super, and you can do EX moves while in that state, but not at any time like you were able to in 13. Super cancels are now as they were, but you can only super cancel upward in degrees. So you have to go from regular super to max super to climax super. So you can't just go from one to the next. And you can't cancel from the same type of super at regular and max form. So you have to switch it up a bit, which is nice.
Right.
I do like that the game has a massive roster, and I also feel like the lower quality of visuals has something to do with that, because unless you're storing everything locally, there's going to come to a point where you can't fit so many characters, their models, their rigs onto a single disc. So I feel like in that respect, I'm willing to give the game a pass on it. That said, 2 things I didn't really see come up. Well, 3 things I didn't really see come up in a lot of other reviews that I kind of take exception with on the game. And I do want to state beforehand, I do still think the game is great. I do still think it's worth the money. But as somebody who's been following the series for a while, first, let's talk about the rush system for a second. This is going to be a problem for the FGC, I think. Honestly, I think a lot of people are going to reject this. And I really feel like SNK needs to put a patch in to turn the damn thing off. Because this is something that is in so many Arc System Works fighting games as an option. And I really feel like it's going to be something that, if left to the decisions of the player, is going to be exploited. And people in reviews mention it doesn't do that much damage, which is true. They do scale down damage on a per hit basis. But I've tested it with Iori, and if you pull off with 1 bar of super his rush combo, it will deal overall more damage than nailing his super. And if you start it with a jab, it's relatively low risk. It's not great. It's not great from a competitive perspective. I don't know what SNK was thinking, making that a mandatory play option instead of segregating it like Arc System Works and other companies do. And I think it's going to hurt the game's longevity from a tournament perspective.
Well,
I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a bad idea.
Well, I do have some thoughts on that. So I think one of the things I noticed about the way SNK and Atlas are kind of approaching with KOF 14 compared to the other games is there's a lot of growth. So, I mean, I know there's debate right now between the graphics of King of Fighters 13 and the previous King of Fighters games and what they're doing now with King of Fighters 14. But, and, you know, a lot of people saying, I don't know why they did this because I liked it better like this. But the reality is there is a ton of growth when it comes to King of Fighters, not only in their promotion and their approach to the new game, but also with the visuals, with the changes in the mechanics and the moves list, and the starting out with 48 characters or is it 50? 50. Starting out with 50 characters, and all, you know, with the demo you already see that there is so much in the game. There's a lot. There's a lot in the game, and even though I don't have access to a lot of it, they even gave you, surprisingly, access that most people don't give you. Here's the training room. You can train at your own leisure. Here's the trials. Here, do all the trials. Here we go. Like, they pretty much like, here, you can start training right now in the game. You only get these characters, but hey, you can start learning the mechanics now. And I think that the thing about that is, some of those changes are due to what's happening in the competitive scene. when it comes to the mechanics change, and now they have like the whole rushdown thing with the way that they have it, and they're changing, and that has everything to do with the switch into esports and the rise and the growth of the FGC and it becoming as big as it is, and all the big companies, because now you're going to see that more games are going to start being remade, new ones. They're teasing Soul Calibur. I guarantee you before the end of the year, Soul Calibur 6 is probably, or some type of a new Soul Calibur game is going to be released.
I'm sure it's going to be announced at TGS.
I meant announced, not released. Obviously, it's been a long weekend.
That'd be crazy, releasing a game at the end of the year
I know,
before
hey,
Tekken 7
no
gets released in
idea.
February.
Yeah. But what I mean is, what they probably had in mind was they're going to now try to look at what's really popular with the players. They're going to look at all the games. They're going to look at Street Fighter and what made Street Fighter popular. They're going to look at Marvel, what made Marvel popular. They're going to look at everything, and they're going to look at their game. And now they're going to try to keep it their game as much as possible, but make changes that are going to adhere to the competitive scene so that their game can be more appealing, which goes along with what I was saying at the very beginning. As it went on and we saw more and more trailers and more information about KOF 14 came out, I started to say, you know what, I have this feeling that this is going to be the year for SNK and for KOF, and I think we're going to see a surge in numbers once the game comes out in tournaments for a really long time.
All right.
Well,
And I do hope that you're right
That's
on
it.
that.
Okay.
That's it. That was my little.
Well, we're on that note. Let's just transition already to your FGC
Okay.
corner, Emily. All right.
Sure.
All right, here we go. I didn't finish setting up, my XSplit once I got my new computer, so we're just leaving it on the default view. Emily, it's all you.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Red Bull events that have been going on, mostly in regards to the affiliate area, since that's been Biggie Gaming has been hosting those. So actually, we just finished our round 3. We just finished our round 3 Red Bull events, not this past weekend because that was Summer Jam, but the weekend before. And one of the really interesting things is every single week we've actually had a different winner. So the first week, LA Joe won. Not the first week. The first month, LA Joe won. The second month, we did it. Sabin won. Arturo Sanchez won. And this last week, Dominion won. So it's really interesting to see. One, it's all New York players, but it's in Philadelphia. So that's one interesting thing I've noticed. It might be nice to hopefully,
see a Philadelphia person win a
the
tournament.
last one. I'm hoping the last one in September. Will be Philly, but I've said this before and I say it again. It is an amazing opportunity, and I'm really looking forward, and I've been looking forward to how it plays out, because when you have things like the Capcom Pro Tour or the Tekken Tour and games like that, and it's only mostly at the large events, and there's a big incentive there. You've got ranking points, you've got premier events, and everybody's going to try to make it to them as much as possible, including all the top players. And what happens is the smaller communities, sure, they're going to compete, they're going to try, but the reality is they have a very hard chance of winning first place. You got to go through a lot of people to get there. And there are some big talents in local communities. They're very good. But, sometimes it just, you don't always luck out. It just depends, So the one thing I like about having, all these different communities across the country, work together and gather, a couple players that have their own ranking system with these events. So it's like Red Bull points, and sending them out to the Red Bull finals for the opportunity to compete in the Capcom North American finals to win a spot at the Capcom Cup. I mean, that's that's a great opportunity for players in the communities that aren't getting necessarily the recognition that they want, or not placing where they like to place. And so I'm really interested to see how that turns out. I have seen a lot of players, really rising up and trying in the local areas, and I think that that's an amazing thing. So we will see what happens. Like I said, we have one more left, and then we will have, at least in the Philadelphia area, at our events, the final, it's either 3 or 4 that will be sent out there. That being said, Summer Jam was this past weekend, and was it? Yes, it was. And it kept me very busy. This was actually, since I was hired by Biggie Gaming at the end of last year, this was actually the event that, like, everything was set, and it was like the first one that I actually, like, worked like the whole thing, and, like, it was an experience. I had worked a major before, Defend the North, but this was, like, I don't know, it was entirely different. And it was an amazing experience leading up to it. I have learned so much that people just don't understand. It's a whole new appreciation for what goes on behind the scenes when you're doing it, especially when you're there. I just don't think that people necessarily always realize that. So shout outs to all of the staff and all of the players and the commentators and the streamers and the cosplayers, because without you, we wouldn't have had such a great event that we did last weekend. And obviously there were some, hiccups. Unfortunately, our, Tekken 7 was not there, and unfortunately there was a shipping issue, and Bandai Namco had canceled the Tekken 7 tournament, so that was a little upsetting. But you know what? At the end of the day, we persevered through, and it still ended up being a really, really great event. And I actually wanted to talk about Street Fighter V Finals. So I am really excited to see Ricky get in the grand finals again, and really excited to see her placing so high. I know she had won DTN as well. And I'm also really excited to see NuckleDu win another major again. He has been trying for a really hard time. So they were 2 players that I was actually really glad to see make it to grand finals. I think regardless, I would have been happy with either one of them winning. But most importantly, if anybody watched my streams with the Street Fighter V demo, I am super excited that Armika won a major. Yes, I know. Y'all control me for saying it, but I said it. Armika is my boo to the end of the day, and she won. Just a little backstory, she's a female grappler. And if you know me, I play T-Hawk in multiple games, and I love grapplers. Therefore, when I knew there was a female grappler, she instantly stole my heart, no matter what.
My boo.
Yes, I said that. Yes, I did. I have no shame.
I am mad at that.
I have no shame at all.
It's all good.
But yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say, to be honest, about it, because the whole entire thing, it was I was working most of it and running around a lot, but it was just such an amazing, I don't even know what to say about it, because it was just such an amazing experience too. I've been there as a player. I've been there as a competitor. I've been there as a spectator. And now I'm there behind the scenes. And you really just, to see it all from so many different angles, it makes me excited to be a part of the FGC. And I realize that it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It really is hard to explain. But all I can say is that from Biggie Gaming's perspective, we have a lot of really, really exciting things planned out for NEC 17 that is going to be at the Valley Forge Casino in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. We have the whole entire 54,000 square feet convention floor. We have lots of surprises planned that we haven't announced yet, lots of surprises that we're not going to announce, and then everybody will find out there. And it's just going to be big. That's pretty much all I can say right now. It's going to be big, and you all should be there. Hands down, this is going to be the biggest Biggie Gaming tournament to date. And I'm not just saying that, and it's not just empty hype. It's legit. And I will probably keep saying that every time I come on this show because I'm gonna promote the hell out of it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Minus King of Fighters, which is really already touched on, and my views on that. I mean, there are other things I want to talk about, but I assume that they're going to be discussed later on because it more has to do with. I'm grouping some current fighting games in with the whole No Man's Sky conversation, so I'm going to hold off on my views on that. But I will mention this, and it pertains to that conversation later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody noticed, but the Street Fighter V numbers are dwindling down at tournaments lately.
Shh. Heresy.
Just
Don't
saying.
say that. All right. So, anyway, since we're, talking fighting games, let's talk about FGC and the eSports. So, granted, recently Street Fighter V was shown off on ESPN. Evo was on ESPN, and that was a great monumental moment for the fighting game community, which, for the last few years has been getting a black eye constantly from other communities, usually first-person shooters, the strategy game community, and even MMO players are like constantly taking shots at the FGC, saying how unorganized, how immature, and just all kinds of nasty things to constantly put us down. And to some degree they have some merit to what they say, mainly in that almost any time you see something bad, it's usually FGC related. Like, oh, this fight broke off at a tournament, let's say like the Fightin' CEO a couple years ago with Noel, or issues with like, oh hey, again, cosplayer at an FGC event had to put pants on, or all kinds of things that just keep popping up constantly, again, delivering more black eyes. So I would have to say, in a nutshell, I mean, I don't think exactly the FGC is esports ready, but they are definitely in the right direction. I mean, definitely on the Biggie Gaming and Final Round side, I mean, East Coast is pretty much, collaborating, despite what some people say. And they're working towards, a system where, the community is trying to strengthen and grow and all that stuff. But you don't see that so much towards the rest of the United States, with the exception to, California and maybe a couple of Midwest tournaments. So I'm gonna turn it over to people. Let's start off with you, Chris. What are your thoughts?
So the thing is that when it came to esports, let's see, what's the best way to TLDR this? The biggest thing that the FGC has always worried about was relevancy. This is something that I've reiterated over and over and over again. Relevancy, and more importantly, the core identity of the FGC has always been important. And the thing is that early on, back when MLG was really one of the first true notable entities to mingle with us, so to speak, that type of interaction was extremely awkward and difficult to see real progress, because these guys came in and pretty much it was just like, we have money, so therefore let us run these events our way. And we're pretty much taking it as, well, no, we've been here for you. We've planted this. We've done this with our hard-earned sweat and tears, and we've done it without any real corporate backing. So how dare you come in, with your shirt and your ties and your briefcases of money, so to speak, and try to basically, buy your
way in?
Well, either buy your way in, but the word I was really going to use was assimilate.
I'm sorry, what?
Assimilate.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's like, it was very off-putting having come in. And this is obviously before I really started getting into the media spectrum with that, people just did not like that. They just didn't like that at all, because we really accustomed to the type of synergy that we had, the pop offs, the hype, all of that defined the FGC. It was just raw. It was just raw passion, and you could not get that type of experience anywhere else. So you go to a Call of Duty event and stuff, I understand those guys tend to pop off, but none of that really compared to what you would get if you went to a biggie event, if you went out to an event in the Midwest, you went down the final round. You just never saw that. And esports basically was trying to come in and said, no, you know what, you should do it this way. And they basically kind of just went in there and started to surgically take out certain elements that really defined who we were. So naturally, when you have all these dedicated grassroots members that have built up their brands from the ground up and have been trying to create more and more engagement, try to bring up their numbers, and just ultimately just make their brands become iconic household names, yeah, they're definitely going to feel some type of way about that. But now, lo and behold, we fast forward to the present, things are really different. Now everyone is willing to sit down and basically break bread with some of these guys, because we've realized that there are advantages to working with the esports model on our own terms. We've realized that we can take some of these elements and create bigger spectacles. We can work towards policing ourselves a little bit better, but ultimately it's still the FGC, with certain exceptions that, hey, this is how we can create more of this esports atmosphere and still have some of those characteristics that you can look and say, this is still FGC, which is why brands like CEO have grown to the way they have and stuff, and they have their attractions. Combo Breaker has done that. Obviously, Larry is doing his stuff with Final Round. Like every dedicated member that has been around for the past 10 years has realized, you know what, because esports is now this major movement that is growing, we have to grow with it. We have to find ways that we can move beyond just having our events in hotel ballrooms and start to support more of these mainstream people that are starting to come in. Now we have people bringing their family members and whatnot. And then when you look at the stuff like the incidents that you mentioned with, the sexual harassment and stuff and all cosplay, that stuff just can't, be allowed to rock anymore, because other sponsors are going to start coming in and say, well, look, this is how you guys are going to do your stuff. No, we can't endorse that.
I mean, look, you got Geico. You got Geico Gaming now. I mean, that was the biggest shock to me. I was sitting there watching him, and all of a sudden I was like, Geico Gaming. I'm like, when did that happen? Geico? Car insurance? What? It was very shocking to me. But you know what? It also doesn't surprise me. And, to quickly go off of what you said, Chris, I think one of the most important things right now, and I've said this multiple times and other people have asked me, is in order for the FGC to transition properly into esports and still maintain the type of hype and the certain core elements that it's afraid of losing, all of the main TOs that have been doing this for a long time, they need to be willing to work together. We need to start working together and almost forming our own sort of, at least this is my opinion, our own sort of esports support system for each other, because if that is what we need to go to, if that is what we're going to, the best way to slow down some of the chaos that arose, because we rapidly went to esports. It wasn't like a slow progression. It was all of a sudden near the end of 2015, it was like it suddenly was bigger. There were more events popping up everywhere, especially in the East Coast, the Northeast area. I mean, I get invites every single day for events around my area, and some of them overlap. Like this Saturday, there's 8 events going on and all the different areas around me. It's insane. But it was worse than that. For a period of time, especially in the beginning of 2016, there was so much. It was constant chaos, and people were nobody's coming to my event anymore. Nobody's doing this, because it was too much. And I think in order to get some of that to slow down, and for us to kind of level out and be where we want to be at with more opportunities. When more opportunities, we need more money, which means we need more sponsors. We need to have everybody actually unite and work together. None of this my event is better than my get that system out of your head. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that at this point. All I'm going to say is we need to work together. The end.
The real thing is now the FGC is not fully esports yet. It's not fully esports. Street Fighter is nowhere near where it should be. I mean, to be perfectly honest.
I agree with you. I agree that we're accurate.
But here's the reason why. The real reason why, to segue into where my role is now. So I've done multiple articles that basically have been talking about player earnings. And the reality is that you have players now that are out there that would like to basically take what they're doing as a passion and potentially make it something sustainable. That's to be commended. There's nothing wrong with that, especially when you have players that are actively competing in League of Legends and Dota, and well, those are the main two.
Yeah.
And they're obviously making huge chunks of money. They don't have to do the typical 9 to 5. There are obviously people that are well vested in Street Fighter and Smash in particular that want a piece of that. But the problem with that is that there are not enough. There is basically not enough entities that are in there in terms of sponsors and in terms of marketing entities that are putting enough money in there. We can basically see the reality of this. As much as it's a sore topic with Mad Cats, okay? So when you look at basically companies like that, which obviously is going to great lengths to support and try to help sustain the community in multiple ways, but that is no longer a viable outlet to help continue to further this agenda that we're trying to push. And so therefore, the point I'm trying to make is that when you start looking at these tournaments and stuff, they obviously don't, they're not, they're very expensive to develop correctly. And now you have all of these entities that are working to do more high production scale. They want to do things in stadiums and whatnot. But in reality, these are all being set up not only to basically attract a broader audience, but then you have these players, and these players are just not getting enough return on investment, which is also the segue into another area where sponsors are trying to look at that and say, well, where's our return on investment? If we're going to sponsor this player, we're going to fly him out there, and we're going to pay for his room and board, so to speak, we have to make some sort of money, and it's just not there yet. It's basically gotten to the point where certain companies are going to really start to screen some of these games, and they're going to say, is this game really profitable for me to invest in?
We already see some. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just going to say we already see some of the screening happening. Look what happens with
NRG.
What?
NRG was what I was going to bring up. The last point was that NRG just recently acknowledged why they were not going to really push too hard with Street Fighter right now, because they don't see that particular product. Nothing against Capcom at all, but they just don't really see the return on investment on that. They see more potential with games like Smash, even though they don't really try to come out and say it. The fact that they're just saying, well, we don't see Street Fighter, which should be alarming because Street Fighter happens to be one of the most iconic titles that the FGC has identified with. They don't normally look at Smash because we already know the topic on that. Smash and FGC, unfortunately, They don't mesh well together. So
nope,
that's
just a lot of mud flinging.
Yeah, it's creating a lot of tension because there's people that are like, "What? How dare you? How dare you say something like that?" Because this has been around for years. So what's going to start basically happening, real quick, just to wrap up my point, is that you're going to see more of a division, but ultimately that's going to lead to more of an evolution. Mm-hmm. Because if players really are going to start investing their time in certain games, they actually have to have something that makes it worth their while. What they're getting right now is peanuts compared to what people are earning in League of Legends and Dota. That's just it's plain and simple. Guys like Tampa Bison still work at a Walmart. Okay, he's not able to say, you know what, let me just do away with that job and just focus on playing fighting games for a living. He cannot say that and be able to smile about it and say I'm living comfortably, because we are just not there yet. We're still getting used to the fact that we have to police ourselves for certain types of misconduct that happens in the scene. We're still getting over the fact that people in one community can't seem to mesh with another community because of like little pettiness. So until we get past that, and until sponsors are truly convinced that they can come in and bring in their money, it's never going to truly get to the level that it needs to be. And there's other things, so we can sit there and talk about accessibility.
Yeah, because I was gonna bring up the whole ESPN thing with the changing of the costume, because ESPN did not approve. And that's what I was gonna bring up in the whole screening thing, is that we are gonna see like more companies say, all right, well, if you can pick that character, but you need to pick this costume because it's too revealing to be on television. Like stuff like that, and there's still people talking about that, so I think that would be like another thing as well that goes into getting used to. Companies saying, sure, we'll bring your game on TV as long as you make sure that nothing's revealing, or as long as you make sure nothing is this, or it has to have this certain rating. This is all that we'll allow, and things like that.
Makes the incident in regards to the DOA costume soft band that we did last year look like nothing. I mean, that was just an experimental idea that we tried to work with, and we got hit with a backlash by not just, the fans who don't even go to the offline tournaments, but like by people who don't even give a crap about the game. But yet, we're going to sit here and no one's going to blink an eye at the fact that, oh no, our Mika is to wear a different costume in finals on ESPN.
Well, I think that this is something that I'm curious what happens with Dead or Alive in regards to...
I don't think Dead or Alive's ever going to be on TV if it's going to be on ESPN.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if they come out with like new Dead or Alive games, I'm curious how it's going to fend.
Well, ultimately, here's what it's really going to come down to, because right now developers as a whole are attempting to basically flush esports down our throat. Everybody basically now feels that, well, if I have a multiplayer component, then therefore my game is an esport. And that's not entirely true. In order to truly say that you are a successful esport, first of all, you have to have a sustainable model, and Street Fighter is not there yet. Street Fighter is not there yet. They're still working on Smash. And then everybody else falls underneath. So to segue back to the King of Fighters, SNK is in a really good position right now to potentially become another good esport. If you need proof of that, then really all you have to do is just look at what they're trying to do by having other players, top players in particular, to advocate their game. You're going to start seeing more of the developers start to bring back, like you said, some of these games and stuff, but they're going to work to retool it in such a way, because the word that you're really looking for is not so much just appealing, it's about accessibility. If your game is not accessible and does not create enough of an intuitive angle that I don't have to sit there and feel like I need a college degree to understand a game, then you've already lost the audience. And this is why fighting games ultimately have such a hard sell, is because that most people just do not want to dedicate that amount of time to understanding. It just is a lot more difficult to break into that than to sit there and play League of Legends. And it's just going to take some time. And I don't think that as a whole that some of us are probably going to be patient enough, because we're like, no, we need to make these grandiose spectacles for our events. We just need more production values. And if we do that, then people will come to our events. But I feel like we're missing something there.
All right. I would love to get Mark's opinion right now, because he's really not like heavily involved in the FGC at all. So I want the outsider perspective on this whole thing. So,
absolutely.
Mark?
Sure.
I've actually been having this conversation a bit on the podcast. Neo Kobe Pizza on iTunes and now Google Music.
There you go. Nice one.
And what about that news site you just got it on, that app?
Google Music was actually the one I just got it on today. Stitcher was yesterday.
Okay.
I'm putting it everywhere, man. But so can I just say, before we get into the topic of discussion in general, the Call of Duty community and like the League of Legends community as a whole have no business criticizing anybody for the way that they behave. I'm just putting that out there.
No, they have just as many
Mm-hmm.
bad behavior things in the news as everybody else.
But
They are not saints like they try to claim they are.
Oh, absolutely.
People are people at the end of the day. I think that people need to remember that in regards to all
I
this as well.
actually, we had a couple Winter Brawls ago, we had Gears of War 3, and we had about 80 people setting up, and me and Eric went into the room to, help them out with the power problem. And I remember some young buck over there got smart with me. He was getting nasty with me for absolutely no reason. Probably didn't even care that I was, at the time, the co-owner of Winter Brawl and Summer Jam at that point. So, obviously they don't have that much, so.
But it's okay. From a discussion perspective, I feel like it's not exclusively a problem with the fighting game community's esports evolution. It's just that the fighting game community has been around longer than anybody else. So they're in the position where they have, I don't want to say a more rigid structure, but a more set structure for how they choose to do things. So having all of these corporate types come in and try to enforce their will in order to make it a more marketable product is going to raise the hackles of people who have been in the community running tournaments, things of that nature, for well over a decade. Meanwhile, LAN parties and, connected tournaments, things like that are nothing new, but the FPS esports are still kind of an evolving thing. So if you start inserting changes into that environment, it's going to go over a little easier because there's not really a unified connective force the way the FGC has. And MOBAs, let's be fair, MOBAs exist for esports at this point.
Pretty much.
They were created off of the back of Warcraft 3, which itself was a sequel to a game whose sidequel, StarCraft, kind of invented a large part of what we understand to be esports today in a lot of respects. So for MOBAs, they kind of started off from jump with the idea of, yay, esports! And you can see it with the fact that in the past 5 to 10 years, Blizzard has stopped being a game developer and started being an esports developer. For better or for worse. So for the fighting game community, I feel like there's going to always be that sort of underground element to the fighting game community where there will be tournaments that are not necessarily esports related that are going to do what they want, because there's going to be people that have been around for over a decade, and they're some cases over 2 decades at this point. Damn. And they're going to say, screw you, I don't want anything to do with this, I just want to play the game the way it's going to be played. But I also feel like there is going to have to be at least some degree of homogenization and assimilation to get it to that next level. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of necessary for the greater good of growing the fighting game community as a whole, because, right now we've got, EVO on ESPN and Street Fighter V is the flagship game, but nobody gives a shit about Street Fighter V. There's a lot of marketing going on around Street Fighter V. We've seen a lot of big press events or big things that have happened around the game itself. Daigo Lupe Fiasco, EVO, things like that.
That's money.
Exactly. But
that's all money.
It is, but Street Fighter V itself is not connecting. The sales have tapered off, and they've been tapering off for a while, even with all of the new content patched in. And whether or not you like the mechanics, it was handled badly from jump. And Capcom has been throwing good money after bad for a while, trying desperately to keep the game as the top dog, when there are a lot of other strong competitors who are ready to step up and be the next big thing. I feel like due to the health of people developing these games, and due to the fact that there are people who are stepping in and saying, you know what, it makes more sense for us to just go with things the way esports want to go with them, we're probably going to see the FGC rise up to be a part of esports as a whole, along with first-person shooters and MOBAs. And at this point, the only thing that the FGC really needs is a big money company behind them to push them to that next level. Because, I mean, Riot and Blizzard are on a completely different level from anything that, like, Capcom or Arc System Works or SNK can even begin to try and emulate.
Well,
Like-
the thing.
Hmm?
Sorry, the thing is, I agree on that. That we definitely need, like, as I was mentioning before, like, more sponsors. We need more financial backing in order to help work on better production quality and more money payouts and like things like that like kind of make esports almost what it is. But the issue is that we need the right company, and I think that as the FGC has been dealing with that rapid growth, there have been a lot of mysterious companies that have popped up claiming that they have all this huge backing and that they're going to be the next big thing. And I think that that's an issue. So while I agree that we do need like one big company, we need the one big right company or several right big companies that we know and that we can trust, that are going to be putting that backing in and helping, not a company that's necessarily in it for them, but a company that understands what the FGC is. They understand the core values that we represent. They understand the hype, and they understand what the FGC actually represents, and that's really important for whatever big company comes in to support us.
The problem, Emily, is, and I'll reiterate it again, is at the end of the day, when these businesses come in, I'll be totally honest. To some degree, knowing what the FGC is obviously important. But at the end of the day, what they're concerned with is the three letters that I used before: return on investment.
Yeah.
The minute they don't see that, they're pulling out. Period.
That's
Point
true.
blank. If
Oh
they
yeah,
don't
and
see
an
that-
ROI is a big thing in any corporate environment.
Right, but
Yeah.
but the thing is that we've talked about this, and this is something we talked about for a while, because you would think that the simple solution is like, well, we just need more money. It's like, yeah, we normally would think that's basically it, but the point is that it is more than that. They can bring in the money. That really is not that difficult, because there are plenty of people. There's obviously there's angel investors and out there. There are plenty
Yeah.
of organizations out there that can do that. At the end of the day, it comes down to the point: is this game going to be profitable?
Yeah,
And right
you're
now,
right.
and right now, Street Fighter is struggling. Let's just not even dick around and just basically talk about.
No, that's what I was talking about earlier. The dwindling numbers at tournaments.
Yeah, it's struggling. It's struggling, and that is basically supposed to be like the titular, franchise, and it is not doing as well. When you have companies like basically other developers that are out there that are starting to either outsell it or already have done that, their writing there is on the wall. And this is nothing directly against Capcom, which obviously is trying. Obviously, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but the point is that the game was rushed.
No, they are trying to fix
out
it.
there, and the thing is that it was something that if they could have done it again, that game should not have come out for at least another year, because it was not ready. And it's unfortunate that there are certain developers that here and there will kind of take shots at that and stuff, because that was embarrassing to
Bethesda
product and have your season set up, and then you look back and say, okay, are we making money? No, sir, we're not. It's just like, okay, well, we have to fix that. And now, fortunately, they're doing that. But at the end of the day, it's two different things. You basically have to have the product have to have longevity, but more importantly, then you have to start bringing in more users. And if you don't do that, then basically these companies are going to be like, well, look, we poured in all this money. We did what you asked. We've helped you create these grandiose spectacles. We hired some of the best people for production, but we're not making money. And since we're not making money, yeah, I'm afraid we're going to have to pull out.
So don't you think it's safe to say at this point that Capcom was possibly a little too focused necessarily on what you were talking about, the marketing value, hyping it up, having all these exhibitions, having with Lupe Fiasco and doing all stuff, and than necessarily they were, and rushing it with the whole eSports and FGC movement rather than taking the time out like, say Tekken has, with the game. Do you think it's more geared towards that? They were trying to attempt to get it out like quickly because they could see it growing so fast.
There was definitely potential there, and most people probably would not really want to come out and present it that way. But the thing was that we basically were given the game too soon. I honestly did not expect to play it this year. As much as I really, really, really wanted to play it, once it was out, I kind of regretted it because it hurts to basically, especially on the media end, it hurts my soul to have to say, okay, this game did not hit its fiscal target. It's very difficult in my position, just to segue into media, having been someone who's been fully invested in the community and then having to talk about this and say, oh my God, like this game is just not doing well. My position is especially challenging and stuff because that's not something that you can kind of really sweep under the rug. The facts are there. Everyone can see it. And I try to be the most optimistic person out there, but facts are facts. And if the game is struggling, the game is struggling, regardless of some of the things they're doing. And
all right, so I'm just sorry. I just wanted to move us along real quick. So
Sure.
Because we got a little off topic there, not
it's
to
okay.
say that
I'm
what
sure-
you guys
I'm
were talking
sure
about
me and Chris
was
could talk about this for a while.
just to say that everything you said, though. I mean, I really really took in what most of you guys are saying. I mean, there's all truth in that. So, but
Right.
just to before we move on to our next segment, though, I want to get like final thoughts from everybody. We'll start with Mark.
I don't really have anything else to add.
All right, Emily and Chris, do you guys want to just give your final thoughts on the FGC and esports? Like anything you think they really need to concentrate on, or
my final thing is, I applaud what Emily's saying about unity, but ultimately what it comes down to in every entity, in terms of production or event organizers or player, everyone plays a certain role. We have to understand that what we are going through is a gradual evolution. We do have the potential to become the next, League of Legends, but it is going to take time to do that. And I feel that because we've had a small taste of that, shout outs to Evo, we see that and we go, oh my God. And now everyone is going to basically scramble and say, how can we duplicate that? And it's not enough just to do that, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the product. Is the product creating more users? Is it bringing in more people? Because if it's not, then you will start to see the numbers dwindling because of one thing or another. We can say that for another topic, but ultimately it just comes down to creating a sustainable product, creating something that's sustainable for the players to keep being invested in it, creating something that is going to keep the companies or investors or wherever still motivated to support the product. Everyone basically plays a part. There is no one particular group that can come in and say, yeah, I don't affect that. Everyone has to basically look and analyze closely what their role is and then be able to execute on that. And I just feel that as a whole, we're kind of getting a little drunk and stuff and a little misdirected off of the whole esports movement. So we're just kind of scrambling in some ways just to see what works, So I feel that even though we are evolving, at times and stuff, I feel like we tend to move a little off course. And that's why the FGC is still kind of working to build a more sustainable platform, but it hasn't quite hit that yet. Eventually it will get there, but we're not there yet.
all right,
Yeah.
Emily, and your final thoughts?
Well, I definitely agree with a lot of what Chris and, Mark had said. I think that one of the biggest issues is that there's a lot of people trying to rush it too quickly. It kind of goes a little bit based off of what Chris said about, we got a little taste of it at, Evo, and now it's trying to be rushed even more. And you can't rush it. I've said this before, that we're at a very pivotal moment for the FGC where we can either go in the right direction or we can go in the opposite direction. So I do agree that it needs to be a gradual change. It can be, big changes that happen every year, but you can't just wake up one day and have the FGC be esports. There's too much that needs to happen that goes beyond money, like Chris was saying, to have us get to that level. And I think there's a certain level of patience that, kind of needs to be there. Like when I first became a part of the FGC back in 2012, obviously it's come a really long way since then. A very, very long way. But it's still not there. And, he's right. There is no tournament without fighting games. And there is no, okay, what am I trying to get at here? What I'm trying to say necessarily is he was talking about a game being profitable. If Street Fighter V's numbers are going down, the more and more that goes down, the less that game is profitable. So then you're going to start looking at other games. Which games are those? Which games are profitable? And I'm getting tired, so I'm going to stop talking. But my point is I agree with everybody, and I just think that there needs to be a slow and gradual change in order for us to get what we want. And I am going to stand corrected on the Unity thing. I'm going to stand my ground on that, because while I understand that there are other elements, we need to still be willing to work together. There can't be any negative backlash that's happening between other event organizers. That's just my opinion on that.
All right. Thank you, Emily. Thank you very much. So, actually, you know what, Chris? I do want to apologize to you for a second at the beginning of the show. I never did ask you. I mean, it says it right there under your tag. You work for PVP Live, so obviously that sounds like it's a competition-based journalism website. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So basically, PVP Live is a esports media platform that has been around for a couple of years. Obviously, we just recently launched earlier this year, and we are primarily dedicated to covering news, highlights. We present scores, and we've recently have changed the foundation a little bit more so that ultimately we can focus on the culture of esports, focus mostly on the players, but ultimately just strive to create a discussion with content and create a lot of narratives that's going on, whether it's in Street Fighter, or it's happening in League of Legends or Dota. Every community has a great story to tell. So really what our job is to focus on providing that type of daily beat, because not everyone has the opportunity to sit down and go to a Twitter feed or go on Reddit or whatever particular media destination that you usually would get your news fix. And that's where essentially we will come in, to be able to provide that and do it in such a way that you don't feel like we're regurgitating something that you normally would read elsewhere. And it's been a lot of fun. I actually enjoy it. Having extensively worked in media since 1996, so I honestly feel that PvP Live has been a true blessing and an honor to actually work with.
Okay. So how much background do you have before you worked with PvP Live? Was it more... I mean, I know a little bit about what you've done, but everybody else, what other stuff have you done that was maybe FGC related or video game related?
So actually, back in the late '90s, my real first taste of doing some type of FGC coverage was actually featured in a magazine called Game Fan, and they actually were the whole reason, the original diehard Game Fan. Just so you know.
Hey, so Mark, where do you work?
Huh?
Hey, Mark, where do you work?
I work at the new diehard Game Fan.
Yes, he works at a new one. So, so at that time. Esports was still a relatively new concept, but it was fun because it was really a great way to help to give the FGC a spotlight. Back then players were just very unaccustomed to having a voice and being presented in a mainstream light. That was just so alien to a lot of people. So because I happened to know some of the staff there at the time when I was running my own type of websites, I reached out to them and put a couple words together, because at the time and stuff, I to be totally honest, my writing a lot of ways I felt was very rough, but they were able to get the gist of that, and we worked on a collaboration. I took photos, and that's kind of like what was the precursor to eventually me moving on and growing my brands a little bit more, and still having like one foot in the door with the FGC, and having another foot, working with this mainstream realm and stuff that was growing. And at the time, outlets like IGN and GameSpot, their coverage was such a far cry to like the stuff that we have now. They didn't have a lot of people that were that you could really consider a specialist. At the time and stuff, they were just still trying to get used to it. Why should we care about the FGC? They used to always ask that. So I was always happy when I had the opportunity to be able to mingle with these guys and be able to help them get a taste of that. And it's great now, but at the time when I started the websites, I had a couple ones that were called like the Next Level, and I had another, a couple other spin-offs, but they were really good and stuff because they actually helped to get me to understand the business side of media. And those things are actually really important when you start to come in and say, hey, look, I want to be able to cover the scene this way. There is a right and a wrong way to put it. That's the best way to explain that. So, yeah, I'm basically like an OG when it comes to the media thing, because it was in '96, and I went through multiple websites and moved on from that. And then obviously when I finally got to meet you and I decided to put together the whole brand, Put That Back, that was what gave me the experience to cover the scene in a whole different, be able to do these colorful interviews and connect with a whole bunch of different players, back when people like Sonic Fox was not even wearing that furry hat and stuff. He was still he was still on the, he was still becoming...
He was still hanging out at the lunchroom during middle school.
Yeah, exactly. He's supposed to be home doing his homework, and he's there chilling at the Copa and whatnot. So it was great because, as the scene was evolving, I was also evolving as a person that was really just looking to take the FGC and be able to present it in a more constructive light and more positive light, because I was always watching the outside and felt that, there's just a whole lot of smearing of the community and stuff, and the only time you tend to hear things is when we do something bad. And I always felt, I always had a personal connection to that. I was like, I have to find a way to change that. So when I eventually was able to move on to organizations like PvP Live, like I said before, that was a huge honor and stuff, because I says, okay, this would be the opportunity to really cover the scene and be able to look at all the things that are going on and hope to create that platform where certain players can have a voice and be able to actively cover the scene, offer that type of daily dose of knowledge. There's just so many things that we do that you just don't hear about. And it's just more than just tournament results. There are like a lot of hard issues that I feel often get swept on the rug and stuff because of, for one reason or another. And I just like, no, you know what? We have to attack that head on, because I feel that's the only real way that you can start to see some true progress and stuff, where, just look more transparency and stuff. So that's pretty much how I tackle that.
All right.
Well,
so
that actually leads me to like one of the topics and questions I wanted to ask Chris about, because it kind of has to do with that. So at the time I had first met you, you were very into Put That Back at the time. So you were taking a lot of photos, and I know that you were on the Kate and Bobby would do a show, and you were always there on that show. I know that was involved with Put That Back. I'm sorry, Daily Burn. Yeah. And you were Meter Burn, sorry. And you were involved with that. And you had articles, you're writing articles. It was very, very involved. But you also had your separate website for just your photos as well. And then that started to change. And then you launched another website, Geeknasia, I believe, is right?
Yeah, Geektasia, yep.
Yeah. And then that was on hold, and then you moved to Texas, and then voila, PvP Live. So I wanted to know what were kind of like your thoughts over that course of time, and with all like the different changes and the relaunching of a new website, and now actually working for kind of esports website and doing all of that, but actually for a website as opposed to running it yourself. And what was that experience like, and compared to what your experience is like now?
I mean, it was obviously very different. Be able to wake up and be able to say that this is something that I would actively do as like a 9 to 5, so to speak. So there was obviously a lot of adjustment, but at the same time, it was very invigorating, because I have spent so many months of my life actively going to out-season events, and it was obviously something that I did out of a labor of love, but
Right.
ultimately I was really trying to push the envelope a little bit further to potentially get into something like PvP Live. And it was something I always felt to some degree might have been unattainable, because at the time those platforms weren't fully established yet. I mean, really the only notable orgs at the time was Red Bull. And I was actually, to some degree, I was somewhat on the fence. I felt that perhaps my efforts would be better suited just working behind the camera, or just being an interviewer and potentially moving on. But I felt in a lot of ways that I was probably running away from something that really should happen. To be able to go in there and just embrace that head on. So once I finally had that opportunity to be able to do that, I knew that it was something that was meant to be. I knew that it was something that I had to take very seriously, and I had to be able to attack it with the highest level of commitment. So having said that, it was just something that once I was able to accept, the reality, because it was kind of a culture shock coming to Texas and doing all of this and be able to do it day in, day out. Like, holy cow, this is my job. Like, this is what I'm actually doing. I'm not doing the typical grind. Like, I'm talking about the FGC. And, that was just wild to be able to just do that and work, be able to work alongside like-minded, representatives in media that are covering Dota and League.
And do what you love.
Genre, and just do what you love.
And do what you love. You have
great.
reached a point where you are able to get paid to do what you love.
Yep. So so when I went back to the events, because I had been away for a while, and I had a lot more people reaching out to me to basically say, how, and it was kind of difficult to answer and stuff, because there really was no real right answer to that. All I could really tell them was that, having spoke to D1 personally and letting him know, and Mike Ross, those were guys that, granted, these guys are both younger than me and stuff, but when I came back to the scene, I was just like, how can I positively impact the scene? I always use those two words and stuff, because I feel that's really important. And I just had to basically tell anyone that I talked to that, you just have to believe that your dreams can come true as long as you stay committed. You have to be able to take a leap of faith.
Absolutely.
Because doing what I'm doing required sacrifice, and most people are just willing to to do that. It's a very scary thing, but if you're not willing to do that, then they will not happen.
All right.
There definitely is a certain level of sacrifice, and you have to start out pretty much like you did. Work the 40-hour-a-week jobs and do all that, and then work additional 20 to 40 hours a week doing stuff that you love, unpaid, to get to where it is you want to be. So I definitely understand that, and I respect 100% everything that you've done. You are definitely, if it makes you feel better, you are definitely leaving a positive impact for the scene. And I remember, what else I wanted to say? I don't remember what I was going to say, but I did. But I definitely, I appreciate everything that you're doing. And I remember now. I was going to say that one of the nice things I think about you getting the chance to run your own websites is that it's made you a lot more well-rounded. You learn from that. It's such a learning experience that when you do get into a position like this, you can see things from all other angles now.
Absolutely.
And it almost makes you a better writer.
It does, and I'm still getting adjusted to, the feedback that I get. There's not a week that usually goes by where someone's not hitting me up and says, "Look, I read a lot of your articles, and I really enjoy your writing and whatnot." That's totally motivating because
It keeps you going.
feel, yeah, it definitely keeps me going. And even though I was already convinced that I was doing this, for all the right reasons, because it's something I was very passionate about, hearing that from multiple people that I don't even know that well, or if at all, and to be able to come to me and tell me that's what really has kept me going. It really drives me to keep pushing and growing, because I feel, and I know this will sound a little cliche, but I feel that ultimately our brand is what's going to become a much larger driving force for esports. We're basically really looking to do something that's a little different than everyone else. We're not just focusing on just like, oh, we got this press release and we just push that out, or we focus on clickbait and whatnot. We really try to get in there, and obviously the prominent people are very important, but there are obviously rising stars, so to speak, and they all don't have a voice. So what our message has been to a lot of these guys, within reason, because sometimes people are just full of it. You have a voice with PvP Live. You can come to us and you can present something, and then we're going to address that in a very intelligent and engaging manner, so that more discussions are created, and hopefully people will start to look at what esports is, look at what the FGC is, and say, you know what, I want to be a part of that. I want to really get to know this culture better. That's what I feel my role is. And you'll see more stuff. It's not just going to be articles, but that's all I can say about that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for telling us a little bit about the PvP Live and your background in gaming journalism.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, I just remembered, we actually did an interview with you like 3 years ago, so I'm glad to see that you're really moving up with things from there. Back when you were with putthatback.com.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. We did have a talk with you. I actually kind of forgot about that, but that was back when we just had the regular pre-recorded podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, that was GVN Radio.
Yes.
Yeah,
what a throwback.
It is. But so are you sure you can't stick around? I mean, you mentioned it before the show that you could only stay for a little bit.
Yeah, I do have to run, but if you would like to touch base for another topic, I'd be more than happy to.
We would love to have you back.
To come back on another episode.
Absolutely, we would love to have you back.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so just on behalf of everybody here, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us on the show. I hope to see you in person again when NEC rolls around.
Oh, absolutely. And just real quick for anyone that's listening out there, please feel free to drop by to our website. If this is the first time you're hearing of it, you can just go by and visit us at pvplive.net. Of course, you guys can follow me on Twitter, which is a shout out to Alpha3, a little colloquialism there. That's Bahnism, spelled BAHNISM. And I really hope that you guys, if you have content, you have ideas, feel this is something that we need to work on, or you feel there's something that we're doing right, your feedback is definitely appreciated. Everyone all the way up to the CEO definitely looks at the feedback, definitely appreciates the feedback. So everyone's input, regardless if it's good or bad, is greatly appreciated.
Also, don't forget that PvP Live also has an app.
Yes.
On the phone.
Yes, do. Yes,
So
the app is totally
you should download that as well.
Yes,
Is it available for Windows Phone?
It is not on Windows. Maybe one day, but sorry to all.
Don't lie. It's never going to happen.
It's on
If there's no Pokemon Go, there's going to be no PvP Live net.
I will.
It's on Android and iPhone, isn't it?
What's that?
Android and iPhone, right? Because I have an
It is
Android and
available,
it's
yes.
on.
Those are primarily the two mainstream, Android and iOS. It is absolutely free. You don't have to worry about some, weird ads showing up somewhere and whatnot. So please, if you really want to stay accessible to our content, be able to get it right at your fingertips. The app is hands down the way to go. A lot of times when we have breaking stories, you will get those actively texted right to your phone. And for those of you that are really into like the mainstream games like League of Legends or Dota, we still actively cover scores for those particular games, so you can subscribe to that. You will get those alerts. But like I said, definitely just reach out to us on Twitter. Stay engaged with us. Let us know what your thoughts are, and I greatly appreciate that.
All right. That was some good stuff. So once again, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir. And you folks all have a good night, and I look forward to speaking with you folks in the near future.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful evening.
Take it
Have a
easy.
good night, Chris.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, guys. So we are now going to move over into our next topic of conversation, as we teased about it earlier. Did you have something you want to say first?
I'm not sure how much longer I can stay.
Yeah, we're
on.
I understand. So if you have to bounce at any point, we totally understand. Mark and me can probably hold the conversation once you leave.
Well, is it pretty much gonna be what we were talking about with the whole KOF and
Well,
not KOF? I'm sorry. No Man's Sky in regards to the hype of games being built up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll actually.
So I can give my opinion and then.
Well, we've already gone an hour and a half at this point. We could save that for next week.
We could. I mean, but again, an hour and a half to 2 hours. I mean, if you guys are unable to, if you guys want to like maybe save it, we could do that.
I'm still just I mean, I don't want to like keep them on here. I'm still just recovering. So like, in case you couldn't tell, certain times like my brain is like I'm in mid sentence and suddenly like I forget that I'm just very, very tired. So I just don't want to like sound like an idiot.
All right. Well, then we can definitely save the topic of
what
conversation for our next show, which will be September 5th. I am hoping to get Paul Solo on the show as well for that episode.
Yeah,
he is the guy from AVGC. I'm hoping to attend it that week as well. I guess since we're going to save the conversation for the following show, which is 2 weeks from now,
make that the main topic.
we can make yes. Well, it was supposed to be the main topic today, but
I know, but we got very focused on esports in the
yeah,
FGC.
absolutely. I mean, that's the main topic in and of itself, too. To be truthfully honest.
Yeah, it could be heavily debated for a really long time, longer than like 2 hours. I feel like, but
okay. So, well, then, how about a quick mini topic, just something that maybe 15 minutes tops that might last. Since we have to drop a topic.
Pokemon,
okay. Charizard is the greatest Pokemon ever. Go.
are you serious?
No,
I mean, don't get me wrong. Charizard is a nice Pokemon, but
actually, to be honest, my favorite Pokemon is probably Blastoise. But
all right, Gen 1. I dig it. Actually, I was just gonna bring up the new Pokemon games. They are doing some
Sun and
cool stuff. I cannot wait until November. I mean, they got like new evolutions for like already evolved Pokemons, like special ones, depending on like which regions you go to and stuff. Like, I just honestly I really love what
at this point,
the Pokemon Company has been doing with the games recently. They really heard all of the fans. Like, all right, this is the same game over and over again. Please do something. And I really feel like when they came out with X and Y, that was it. They were showing us.
That made me happy.
Here you go. We heard you. Here is Pokemon. It has all the same elements of Pokemon that you enjoy.
3D.
But 3D, the graphics are better. There's more that you can do. It's in a whole entire new world. We have new stuff after game things. So like one of the things that like I always hated is that like when I finished like the older gen games, that was it. I could like walk around and I could
still
like,
try to catch Pokemon, but
Pokemon. But there was like no after game stuff, so it kind of just made me like, all right, after a while, I got
Gold
bored
and Silver did have that NPC factor where like they can call you at any point and you can have rematches.
But it wasn't to the extent that I feel like X and Y took.
Not to mention there was excess that they also included breeding in Gold and Silver, so like you had that, and you had the callback NPC callbacks. I mean, granted, Gold and Silver to me was the last time I was super excited for the Pokemon games until XY came out, which is, to be honest, my favorite of the franchise now.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Like, it really wasn't until, like, after a while. And you're talking to someone who's played every single generation of Pokemon. I'm a huge fan, so I have an opinion about every single one of them. But it really wasn't until X and Y that I felt that they were truly, honestly listening to everybody and what, they were saying. Like, one of the things I really enjoy is that, the demo. So I had gotten the demo for, it was either X and Y, either X or Y or Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. I can't remember which one, but I got a demo code. And I remember that it was like multiple different little like missions that you did, but every mission that you did, you got something. You got Glacy. You got a Pokemon, or you got like 20 Pokeballs, or you got this many potions. And you basically went into holding and you could transfer them to the game like when you got it. And like the stuff like that like you can't do. So it's more like I just like the evolution of the game itself. I got Yellow because Yellow was the only one I didn't play at first gen. So, like, when the game came out back on the 3DS again, when they released Red, Yellow, and Blue, I got Yellow. And it was very nostalgic. But you playing it again, my God, you could see how far the game has come. It was frustrating. I mean, imagine playing the newer games and going back to the original.
You can only make a 2D sprite look so pretty until you have to,
It wasn't even that. It was even just, like, the actual, like, fight moves, like, when you, like they would miss, or they like wouldn't do as much damage, and like it was like weird. It was like harder. It was almost harder than the newer ones at times because it was just so.
Well, they kept adding all new types of Pokemon. Not to mention they kept altering like existing Pokemon with the new types on top of that. Like sometimes they would add X, or they would sometimes It would sometimes add darkness elements to like certain Pokemon that didn't have it beforehand, or steel. It added it definitely evolved the rock paper scissors game in a way that the original, it was pretty big before, but you only had I think 6 types of elements at the core game, and then they expanded it to what is it up to now? Almost 16.
There's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you got fairy type. There's going to be a new type that they revealed for Sun and Moon.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, and I agree with you, Crystal, X and Y were a lot easier than the beginning ones. And I didn't quite realize that until I was playing Yellow, and I realized actually how much, like, their mechanic system, how much easier that actually got. But I don't know. I like all the elements they added into it. But I'm gonna change the topic for a split second here.
Don't you want Mark to get his input first?
It still has to do with Pokemon.
Oh.
It still has to do with Pokemon. I'm just saying the one thing that I think some other companies are failing on is, typically when other game developers or other, for example, nerd culture, movies to be exact, comic book movies. Couple filmmakers saw these are popular. Oh, I know. Now we're going to make all these comic book movies and superheroes and all this because they realized how popular it's being. It's the same thing with Pokemon that I've seen. For example, can we talk about Yokai Watch but not talk about Yokai Watch?
No,
because
my kids watch Disney Junior and I keep hearing that damn commercial and it gets on my nerves.
I'm going to just say this. I'm going to say this once and then I'm done with it. I played the demo because so many people were like, oh, play Yokai Watch. It's the next Pokemon. Okay. I hated it. This is my God honest opinion. Playing that demo was a waste of my time. That is my opinion on it. I absolutely hate it. I felt it was a poor attempt at taking Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and putting it together. And trying to make their own version of what that all was. And it was... The acting was weird.
Mm-hmm.
It was like overacting. I don't know what they were doing. I did not like it. And I think that Pokemon is the superior game to Pokemon. Does that make sense? I feel like there's no other game that I feel like Pokemon that could beat Pokemon.
I like to make a game.
Okay.
And I really wish it would make a return. Monster Rancher.
Monster what?
Monster Rancher. It was that game
I don't think I ever played
on the
that.
PlayStation. The way you got monsters was by actually having the game on, but then you would swap discs out with music CDs, and you would get a random monster based on the music CD you got, and that continued on until the PlayStation 2 life cycle. I think it was developed by Tecmo. Mark, can you confirm that for me?
Yeah, that game I haven't heard of.
I mean, I could type it, but I'm pretty sure it was. And it was a really interesting game in its mechanic. I mean,
that was a Tecmo game.
It was. So, you know what? Tom Lee, I'm going to have a word with him. Say, yo, knock it off with the DOA titty volleyball games and start making Monster Rancher.
Crystal says it is Tecmo.
It is. So
Here's another thing I miss. Tamagotchis. They need to come back.
no.
You can still get them on Amazon.
What? Why are you gonna
$15.
say no to Tamagotchis?
I'm not saying no. I'm saying you can still buy them.
Not you.
No,
Ron.
if
It's like,
instead of
no.
little Tamagotchis, they might as well just make like an app for a Tamagotchi app for phones by now. I'm
It's
surprised it
not
hasn't
the
happened.
same- No,
They
it's
do?
not
They
the same.
have one, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
but it's
there you
not
go.
but it's not the same thing as the little handheld keychain Tamagotchis. I'm just naming games. at
How is
this
it any
point.
different than just pulling out your phone
I'm
every
just-
10 minutes? Instead of Pokemon Go, you're
Okay,
looking at
look,
your little
there was a
Tamagotchi.
there was a game that I got that was similar to Tamagotchi, but it wasn't Tamagotchi on my phone. And there was only so long I could play that. Alright? Because it eats up your gigs. Tamagotchi does not eat up your gigs. Okay? It's just a little keychain. Once the battery goes, that's it. But it's not but it lasted a while and it doesn't eat up your gigs. Therefore, it is better to get the little keychain Tamagotchi than get an app on your phone for it. Just my personal opinion. Another game they need to remake. All right.
If
they
you
need
say
to-
Digimon, I'm going to turn off the stream.
I'm not really a huge fan of Digimon.
I only watched the cartoon. I never knew about if they had really any games when it came out or anything like that.
They did, but it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
Hey. Hey. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth was one of the best games released this year. Kiss my butt.
I'm talking about back when the
I'm
original
sorry.
show came out, but if they've got good games coming out now,
I was never a
then
huge fan.
okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm not a fan of Digimon at all. I never watched the show. I never played any of the prior games.
I didn't even know there was a game that came out recently because I don't care about Digimon.
You don't have to care about Digimon.
I care about Pokemon.
It's basically the sort of console game that Pokemon should have released years ago.
that's good in a nutshell.
I would actually love to see Pokemon come to. Actually,
Hey Mark, there's
I've
an idea for your
actually-
next stream. Show us that Pokemon or that Digimon game.
I can't. He hasn't played it yet.
I actually
Darn.
have heard rumors that there has been talk about bringing Pokemon to like a Nintendo system, like not the handheld.
Well,
I
they
have-
had some on the GameCube.
Wait, but I mean like outside of like Mystery Dungeon and like things like that. Like I've heard like they literally have been in talks or have thought about putting like a next gen game like on a gaming system as well. And I'm wondering how that would fend. I'm so used to it being handheld that I feel like even if it was for the gaming system, like I would have to have it for the handheld. Like it's weird. Do you
Well,
think
the fans have been asking for them to release a legitimate console Pokemon for years at this point, and they released the two for the GameCube, which were very hacked down, not really even close to what Pokemon is games
Yeah.
with a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness and the one that came out before that. But there hasn't been any real discussion towards the idea, like until recently, of them maybe releasing one on a console. If they were to release it to the Wii U, it would die a slow, painful death.
well,
That's why
the-
they're probably holding off for the NX, I guess.
The reality is it would be for the NX just as much as the new Zelda game got delayed because they decided to release it with, the NX. The only thing I am concerned about now that the NX has been brought up, is that the NX's real name apparently isn't the NX. It's supposed to come out before the end of this year, but we barely know anything about
think
it.
Nintendo is going to make reveal at the TGS. It seems like everybody wants to make big reveals at the Tokyo Game Show. That's where we're going to learn about the PlayStation 4 Neo, the NX, possibly Soul Calibur. I heard a rumor that maybe Sega's going to finally announce a U.S. release for PSO2.
I'm pretty
but then
sure
again,
that
they've been saying that for the
Capcom
last 4 years.
didn't Capcom recently say that they were also releasing a bunch of new information about Street Fighter V there as well?
Something like that. Like, everyone seems... It's like people don't seem to want to make the big announcements at E3 anymore.
When is that again?
In a couple weeks, I believe. It is, the second or third week of September?
All right,
Tokyo
so it's coming
Game
up.
Show.
But the thing is, doesn't the NX come out in November? Or is it December? I know it's like right around the holidays, because everything is like always right around the holidays, it seems like, with Nintendo.
If they release that in December, that thing is going to die.
But
Yes.
don't they... But
Well, Nintendo traditionally releases their stuff in the spring now. Like anything. Like, I think they might consider releasing it in March. That's what I heard.
I have to look it up because I thought they were saying that they were releasing it before the end of the year, but maybe I'm wrong.
By the
Or
way,
was
Tokyo
that- or was
Game
that a-
Show starts Thursday, September 15th, and the public day is the 17th. So, pretty much the weekend, about 3 weeks away.
Well, I just found this. Nintendo NX will not be revealed at the Tokyo Game Show.
What are they going to do? Bring back Nintendo Space World?
I don't know. I just saw this article here that says Nintendo NX will not be revealed. There's a rumor that it will, but then there's some articles saying that it won't be. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I do think at some point they need to reveal it. They can't keep it like hidden forever. Because I'm trying to find it now. Because in April 2016, they announced that the release date for the upcoming NX games console, still codename, is March 2017.
Yeah.
And then it suggested it would be revealed during the Tokyo Game Show. But, now I'm reading articles that it might not be. So who knows? It's a big mystery.
Yeah. Well, to be truthfully honest, I think we should probably end the show on that note. Leave it all up to mystery. So, I just want to give a quick big shout out to Chris Bahn to once again being on our show.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to have to apologize one more time. I'm very sorry that it, escaped my mind to ask him about his job when we were saying, "Hey, how you doing?" at the very beginning of the show.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We did ask him at the end of the day, so as long as it gets done.
Yes, as long as we, got him talking, other than FGC stuff. So.
I mean, it is what he's primarily involved in, Sal.
It is. That's his big job. So, anyway, thank you, Emily, for joining us tonight. Mark, as always, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Okay. Thank you, and everybody have yourself a good evening.